Oh yeah,
Hi, Conor. How are you? So, thanks for joining us. So, I just want to introduce Conor here from Digit. Is it Digit Studios or just Digit, by the way, out of curiosity?
we work with. I work with either.
Hi.
We'd
Okay.
usually say Digit Studios, but yeah,
Yeah.
Digit is perfect.
So again, I don't even need to introduce Digit to the Irish, gaming audience. The biggest game studio here, fantastic success with Star Trek Fleet Command, bought by Scopely. So just a great success story. So we've just asked Connor again with our developer audience and graduates just to give an insight and tips into, the tricky job of getting into the games industry and from somebody experienced here just to get some perspective. So Connor, I'll hand over to you.
No problem. Thanks, Peter. So thanks everybody. It's fun to wrap up the day, and there's been a lot of good things coming from everybody who's been speaking so far. I'm going to bring this up, and I hope everybody's able to see that. So
Yep.
we will we will jump into it. Yeah. So my goal here is to kind of wrap up some of the things you've been hearing as you've been speaking there, or as everybody's been speaking, and just kind of help you understand like ways that you can try and make the right first impression as you're trying to get into a position in studios. So I'm going to go through a couple of steps on how to get your foot in the door, finding that first position, like jumping at that first position you can try and grab, and then making sure you can be successful. So not everything is going to be appropriate for everyone. And there's already been a lot of really good advice from all the speakers through today. You're going to hear a lot of that repeated again. Um, some of the things will be useful to you. Some of them might just trigger you to look at things a little bit differently. But of course, first of all, I should probably introduce myself and do my own first impression. So hi, I'm Conor Crowley. I'm the EP for Star Trek Fleet Command. I'm with Digit Game Studios. Uh, I'm currently, originally I was working with Jagex on a game called RuneScape. RuneScape is now, I believe it is 20 years in live operation, and I was lucky enough to be a manager there for quite a bit of it. Um, while there, I got developed 30 under 30, so that was a chance to be recognized for contributions. And I did that while working on the technology on RuneScape. It's really good to hear all the things that are happening on Demonware and kind of have flashbacks to high uptime. Of course, we didn't have numbers in the millions, but definitely the hundreds of thousands of concurrent players, and understanding that consistent effort is really important. So getting that experience of RuneScape was really good. And I also managed to get the chance to win a BAFTA with old school RuneScape. So during all of this career as well, I've spoken a lot about production development at numerous conferences. So Pocket Gamer in London is a really good one if you can get a chance to go there, up to GDC. And I've also spoken to a lot of universities and everything to students about game development, and also how to get into the industry and how to try and make sure that you have a good chance of delivering excellent games. So that's a lot about how I've worked here, but all of the things I've done have been coming from working with really talented people and working with really strong teams. I've built and operated teams from like small 4 or 5 people up to over 100 across all disciplines and environments. And through that, I've been talking to a lot of leads in those disciplines and looking at what really allows us to find the right people and what to look for when you're trying to find someone to join your team. So we facilitate like everything that we do in production is about facilitating those teams and delivering excellent work to serve our millions of players all around the world. And so while we're trying to hire, I personally have built up QA teams. And so looking at the people who are really trying to get their first foot in the door, QA is a great opportunity for that. And so understanding what makes a good tester, what it means to be part of QA. It's not just playing games. It's a lot about understanding how games work and how they operate. And it's a great chance for you to get an understanding of how games are brought together and what you need to do to be able to progress through any other discipline by having a really strong grounding. I've worked with dev teams and engineers on trying to find people who are from scripting and design through to like low-level engineering efforts from back end and up into client, rewriting game engines. Try to find directors at a level to lead disciplines and lead entire portions of a team to try and make sure that they're really successful. But really, my passion has always been in production and finding people who have that balance between project management, understanding how different teams work together, and then also how we can make sure that our teams are able to work really effectively and we're able to focus in on the game and the output of what those teams are doing. So through all of this and through working with everybody, I've picked up a couple of tips, and there's certain things that we look out for when we see applicants looking for different positions. And first thing I'm going to do is kind of talk a bit about making sure you can connect with others. Now, you've heard this from a couple of speakers today, right? Building up a connection and reaching out and joining communities is actually a great way to get you ready to join that first job. The network is one of your best assets. It can be really daunting to do this, so I'll talk a little bit about how you can try and do that well. But really, it's about, before applying for the job, creating the environment for yourself so that that application can be successful. So really, we're talking about connecting with others, all right? The first thing, I think Aoife was already talking about this, getting involved in game jams, talking to a lot of people about how they're getting engaged with that and building out the community. You'll meet like-minded people, you meet experienced developers. It's a great way to try and level everybody out, understand how different people solve problems, which could be really helpful for your own projects. But also, everybody's there because they love games, right? The real reason you want to try and build something is because it's fun. Those game jams could be local. There's several that are happening around Ireland, but also global, especially now that so many people have gone remote, and even events like this. It's an opportunity to try and engage with global events everywhere. And the important thing when you are going to an event or you're trying to get involved in them, take the time to connect and engage with other people. It's really important to know that this is your chance to actually speak to people. So you want to make sure that you're reaching out to them, you're talking to them, and this is where you will start building that network and building that connection. Whenever you are actually reaching out and connecting with people, it's not just when you're at game jams, tell them why. This is going to be very important, right? So you don't want to just reach out. You want to reach out, explain who you are and why you want to connect. Many of the people who are here today, if you ask them about what's happening or ask about LinkedIn, there's a lot of people who will reach out. There's a lot of people trying to connect. And quite frequently, it's a very cold, this person would like to connect. But when that comes with some explanation of you're a student, you're interested in developing games, you're looking for someone you can speak to, you'll find that people are much more supportive or much more likely to connect. And it's a way that you can start building up that mentorship and start really understanding who people are. So I really recommend that even though you may try and reach out and connect to people, always explain why. The other thing to consider is a lot of what you've heard as well about building your portfolio. We just heard about building that portfolio from your college projects. It's absolutely great advice. It's one thing to do a side project, but the real thing you want to try and focus on is finish things. Right. So understand what craft you're trying to get involved in, and you want to build your reputation by building out your own work. So if you enjoy writing, look at self-publishing. We've already looked at Twine as an option for building narrative-based games, or even if you're just writing some small piece yourself, self-publishing is a great option. It's available to a lot of people, and hosting your own website is useful too. But always putting things out that are finished. Release your games on public platforms. Even if you've built something as part of your project portfolio, consider what you need to do to bring it to a close and finish it, and then release it somewhere on there are many platforms that are available to you today that you can try and get things out there. Submit your artwork. Make sure that you have an online portfolio. Make sure it's really easy to find that online portfolio. So you want to use this as a way to engage with where all these things are hosted, be they a game hosted on a platform, your artwork hosted on a site like ArtStation, or anything you're doing for your self-publishing. Engage in that community, because that might be the place where you're building up your connections and they're people that you can really rely on in the future. But always remember to only show your best stuff. Portfolio isn't a collection of everything you've done. It's a collection of your best stuff that you've finished and you've completed. Right. The big thing, and comment you'll see down in the bottom, if you want to do something professionally, make sure you can already do it to some degree and show what you can do. On top of that, study. You're all, everybody who's here as a student, you're already doing this. That's great, but never stop, right? Nobody I've spoken to in any team anywhere has ever stopped trying to learn new things. So it's important to realize you don't know everything, right? You definitely don't know everything the second you come out of university. You've learned a lot and you've got a base, but there's a lot more to learn. And even if you've been working for years inside in any particular industry or any particular team, there's always more that you can learn. I'm constantly bumping into new things and new ways to approach stuff each day. And approaching my work and approaching teams by looking for new ways to approach stuff and new ways to learn always allows me to improve. So as you're going through this and through your study, building out your portfolio, connecting and engaging with communities and building this network of connections, it's important to understand that you build this network of connections because you want to use it. You can use this network to find jobs through things that they're posting, or asking for input and advice, or even engaging with people if you're looking for something, allowing them to know that you're trying to find that job, making sure you have that connection, you're using it as a way to find the opportunities that you will need in the future. And eventually it'll happen. Eventually you'll find the opportunity and you'll want to apply. And then we start moving on to the application, right? So don't just send your application to every job at every company. Pick your applications and tailor your approach to who you're going to go for. Your application is going to be the most common first impression you have with any studio or any group of people. So you want to think about how you want that to come across and make sure you're shaping it appropriately. Most game company roles have a lot of applicants, and there's a lot of people to go through, which means hiring managers have large numbers of people to deal with. So you want to be able to stand out. Every time you apply for a job, try and tailor it. The first thing you should do, though, is consider your own online footprint. This is the part that you can't tailor per job, but it is something that is going to be important. LinkedIn is obviously one of the first places people will end up going to, and you need to have a look at that and consider what it's saying about you. What is your work history saying? It doesn't need to have every job you've ever had. It should have the jobs that speak to what you want to try and do in the future. It should speak about the projects that you've done that contribute to that, and direct people to other locations online that kind of are showcase the work that you've done, which you've been building up based on that portfolio and building out your connections. So every single element and every single point that's on your profile is really important. So consider what it's saying about you. It's not just about, hey, look at me, I've done everything. It's about, I've done these things, and that's why they're important to what I want to do in the future. Focus in on the responsibilities and descriptions as you're going through all of those elements. And make sure you always provide links to work if you can. Now, the other thing is, as I may have seen at my own introduction, this is not the place to be modest. You want to make sure that you come across and you are highlighting. It is okay to be humble, to understand the support and the help that you've gotten from all the other people around you to be able to accomplish what you've done, but don't be modest and don't hide that. Make sure you're putting it forward. You're telling people that you're making these, you've made these accomplishments, you've achieved these things in your past, and they are highlighted and shown front and center. Whenever you are doing an application, and as you are trying to showcase these accomplishments, try and reflect the company, right? A job spec for a particular company is kind of like a cheat sheet. It will be written by somebody who's completely immersed in that company's culture, their way of speaking, the terminology and terms they use day to day. And so use it. Different companies will refer to the same thing with different words. But if you could reflect the words that this company is using in your own application, you're giving somebody something that they can key off, and it's a way for them to feel more familiar with your application and give you kind of a chance that you're speaking the right language. Also shows that you've done your homework, you've understood who you're applying to, you've understood what they're going for, and it means that your application probably has more insight into what's going to happen. This is also a place where if you have built out your connections and you know somebody who's at that company, before you put the application in, take a moment to speak to them and just see what kind of person you're applying to or what kind of thing the role is. It can be really helpful. It's not always available, but make sure that you're using these things. It's not cheating. It's about making sure you understand who you're applying to. So always make sure that you're kind of trying to mirror the language, the terms, and the explanations that are there. And always bring those front and center. Don't expect the hiring manager to be somebody who will draw the conclusions and connections by themselves. They're going to be reading a lot of things. You want yours to try and be something that stands out and catches people's eye without needing them to work really hard to find that information. Now, there's another thing to really consider as you're building this application is to understand and recognize the fundamentals of the role you're going for. And this is across all disciplines. So if you're looking at an engineering role, it may be that you're looking at an internship role, and it might not be the case that you have worked in those languages or that particular work before, but you have comparable experience doing something else or a project that has spoken to similar sorts of things. Bring that forward, make sure people understand it. Highlight where you understand the fundamentals of the job you're doing. If you're looking at an art role and you're looking at your art portfolio, make sure that you're demonstrating those fundamentals. If it is environment and building, make sure you're showing an understanding of architecture. If it's character, make sure composition and position and form are coming across in that portfolio. And then you're demonstrating them in your application. So there's something that people really understand. And all of this is telling a story, and try and let it do that. Let your history of your roles, of what you've done, why you moved from position to position, if you did, or why you chose your courses and your projects in university. Let them tell the story and what you're trying to achieve. It gives something interesting for the hiring manager to read, and it gives a better sense of who you are as a person. And all of this is important because you want to set yourself apart. And it is important that you're doing that through your history and your story, not through your formatting. There was actually an interesting one I had in a application form for a QA role where somebody had lined the entire edge of their CV with colored ducks. It definitely stood out when I saw the list, but it didn't make it much further than about 3 seconds into skimming over the top of about the 50 CVs that were applying for that one position. And that's the challenge that you can face up against. But at the same time, you can step yourself above a lot of this by really understanding the role that you're going for. Now, we're going to assume that you've been incredibly successful. This has all worked, and you've gotten that call back, and you're going to go get ready for an interview. And that's the next part, right? This is your chance to make sure that story you were telling in your application is really coming to life. It's like the application form is just this line drawing of what you're going to do, and the interview is where you get to put color on that. You get to add it in, explain to people what it's really about. Now, the biggest thing I'll tell anybody who's ever gone for an interview, especially if you're going for a game company and you're going for a game studio, play the game. If it's live, make sure you've gotten your hands on it. If the game isn't live, but the studio has launched another game, play that game. If there's something, you know what type of game it's going to be, and you know the space it's going to be in, play those games. Understand the game that you're applying for. Understand the studio that you're applying for as well. This is the most important thing for you to research, and it is one of the most disappointing things when you do bring people to interview and they haven't played the game that they're applying to be part of. The difference between a candidate who has played and engaged and hasn't is very obvious through an entire process. And once you know that, do your research as well about the studio itself. So make sure you're understanding the studio, the culture, what they've done, why they exist. You have a lot of that example through today as you've been listening to speakers from different studios and different ways that they speak about different things. You get an understanding of who they are and what they're trying to do. Everybody has their own approach, and there's values and ways that they speak about things. And it's important to make sure that that's something that works well for you as well. An interview is not just about making sure that you get the job. It's making sure that the job and the team are the right kind of people that you want to be with. It can be important to get that foot in the door and start getting that experience early on. You want to be able to do that on purpose and understand the people you're going to be working with. And that's why you want to also do your research on your interviewers. It's not about stalking, it's about understanding their history and understanding where they've come from. They have online profiles and presences as well. So as soon as you know who they are, just understanding who you're going to be speaking to also can help you understand that they're people too, right? You can understand where their history has come from, how they've gotten the role, how long they've been there, how much they're going to be a part of that team, or whether they're going to be fresh as well. And it gives you something to speak about, and it gives you the chance to start asking questions. And this is really important. There's a reason that in every single interview you'll be asked, do you have any questions, and the team will try and open up that opportunity. Some of that is being inquisitive is really important. Understanding that someone's going to join a team and they're going to actually engage directly with the team is really vital. So ask about the role, ask about the team, ask about the market and the competitors, show your interest and show your enthusiasm. But then out of all of this, you're going to be going in there looking to answer questions. Think of the examples that you'll be giving about the questions you're being asked. Think about times you've been successful, challenges, how you've overcome them, teamwork, communication. These are pretty consistent things. Have examples, have things you can lean on, rather than just reading from the book. And they don't have to be just from professional experience. These can be from team projects that you've run as well. And so with all of that, this is kind of where it is. Build up that network, get that application in for the roles that are standing out to you, tailor your effort, and then do the research and get ready for it. And so hopefully, if you follow all of these points and you've showed that you can perform competently and you've shown the detail inside the or your portfolio, you'll be able to find that role, and it'll be something that'll be really, really good for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Conor. You make it sound so easy.
Oh, I wish.
I mean, I think just an excellent presentation, just for everybody, distilling, which is, it is difficult to get your foot in the door in the games industry. There's more applicants than there are jobs, and I think that's really good practical advice. I wish I heard that when I was starting out, made all those mistakes. But Conor, just one or two things just with Digit. As is Digit, say, mobile games? Would you have a preference for somebody who has experience in mobile games, or are you a broader based company? Would that have an impact on viewing candidates?
Sometimes it can, and sometimes it doesn't. It definitely depends on the seniority and the expectation of the role. Now, what I would say is for many roles, we're pretty open to applicable experience. A large number of the team, it would have been their first job in games. As you become more senior, there's an expectation that you have that base level knowledge of how to operate a live service game or how to operate a mobile title. But even still, I think more and more the platform is becoming less of a thing. And it's more about the type of market structure you're going into, right? It's less about whether it's PC or console or mobile, and it's more about whether you're doing a live service title or you're focusing in on microtransactions or ad-based thing, or you're looking at that box copy option as well. That's actually where the difference starts coming from. There are obviously platform things too. But if you're looking at any of the other roles, it's actually, especially when it comes to engineering and server engineering, very much so, it is such a transferable skill set that games aren't even what you're looking for. You're looking for like people who can build robust, high uptime, dependable services that can handle large numbers of concurrent users. That can be something that can be a very different type of industry and move across. It's a little bit less so. I mean, Unity developers are Unity developers. There's not many client-side stuff that will be different, but yeah, a lot of the times we're looking for people who can show interest and skill set, and they're willing to put the investment in.
Okay, and as you're probably one of the biggest employers in games in the country, where would be the, say, your current major openings, and maybe down the line, where do you see where you will require roles, immediate, maybe looking in the short term?
Well, we've a lot of open roles at the moment. We have a big demand for, well, there's a reason that engineering is front of mind. We have a lot of open engineering roles. We also have a couple of design roles, and I myself am hiring a number of production roles as well. So, like across the board, we're continuing to expand across, like both in supporting Star Trek and looking at future things as well. Now, the interesting thing is that we try and make sure that we have a robust experience inside in the team. And then we can start building up the ability to have more, not so much internships, but those kind of entry level roles where we're bringing people in. Now, the really good thing is we have all disciplines in Dublin, right? We operate with all possible roles working with us here. We do work with outsourcers. There's always someone who's inside in Dublin as well. So over the coming, in the short term, we have a lot of open roles that I invite people to have a look at. In terms of longer term approach, yeah, things will be continuing to open up, and it's always something to keep an eye on.
Cool, that's great to hear. And the success of Digit is a major kind of flagship studio for the country. So it's great to hear that, and that besides the immediate jobs. Conor, listen, thank you so much for that talk. I think it's one of those things that game career advice, I think sometimes it's missed, and some of those little steps, I know myself with candidates, you've given some really practical things, so I think that's so important, and kind of missed at times. and even for the game studios that they might miss a candidate. So I think that's been hopefully useful for yourselves as well. So again, just look, thank you so much for your time and the talk.
Really appreciate it. Thank you very much for the chance.
Cool.